Scarpetta, episode 8. It's finally over. I feel like we should have a celebration now that this show is finally over. Now, at least we get resolution. So, most important to start by saying, full spoilers here. If you don't want spoilers, please catch something else. But for now, we're diving into this. So, just like last episode 7, where ultimately, who else could catch the killer? It's gotta be Kay, right? Just like episode 7 ends, episode 8, the final in the season, ends with who catching the killer? None other than, of course, Kay. So, the person who shouldn't be dealing with any of this is the person clearly dealing with all of this. In this case with Nicole Kidman's Kay, there doesn't seem to be a detective on the case. So, who knows? Anyway, okay, so let's stay in the current period. And so much to dive into because there's so much insanity happening. We have officially gone full Scooby-Doo for sure, but let's stay with our storyline. So it was very gratifying to see Kay Scarpetta find the penny and think, is one of the people in my home with the penny? Is that what's happening here? And then discover he got in the home. So this has been a very full night. I just would like to say very full night, right? The niece is pissed off. We'll get back to that. The sister and the husband leave to go to a nicer hotel. Finally, someone's going to a decent hotel, not an econo lodge. But long story short, she's home alone, finally. Now, where did this guy come from? This is my issue in this episode especially, but in many TV shows. Because if I'm home, and I'm home alone, and I don't have hearing issues, I can hear a vehicle approaching quite easily. So we assume the guy parked somewhere quite far away, did not park in front of the house like she did in the last episode. He must have parked far away and walked in, and she never saw him coming. I don't see how she didn't hear him coming, but I will say this does seem to be the least secured house in the Commonwealth, right? Any door appears to be open at any time. She appears to unlock a door with a skeleton key and not lock it again behind her. Every door appears to be open. It is an open house for possible serial killers. So she's home. She gets the guy. Now, who's the killer? Are you kidding me? This is a thumbs down because at least it could have been Benton. Even better if it was Pete Marino. Honestly, but ultimately, the issue I take with when mysteries are resolved with situations like this is, yes, it's actually very, very gratifying and satisfying when someone you've seen from the start turns out to be the bad guy, right? We never saw him doing that. We never saw it coming, right? Very gratifying for you and me to consume this content. Nevertheless, where was he for these 8 episodes? Could he not have shown up a little more prominently? So, this is a writing issue again, but it's definitely also, I'm going to say, a directing issue. Because we saw that guy, what? The very first clip, the second scene of the whole show after she gets woken up, right? All of a sudden, we see these 2 cops there at the scene of the crime. Soko, right? But ultimately, did we see him for more than a breath here or there? He wasn't a fixture. And maybe in the novel or novels, he is. But here it was like, wait, who is that? Who is it? So again, so unsatisfying. I don't even have words for quite how unsatisfying, but good for you for trying to put someone there from the start as the killer. Would it have been better to be Benton? Absolutely. That would be a twist I'd be here for. But this being Scooby-Doo, we didn't get that twist. Honestly, in Scooby-Doo, I would have gotten that twist. So, she catches the killer. But not only does she catch the killer and apparently get a confession, we'll never get a taped confession because she has now not only incapacitated him, she has also taken his face off. And this is where, right, we go from a protagonist to anti-hero so quickly. And maybe we could have seen it coming. She does seem to be a bit of a monster, right? When I think back to past Kay, thank you, Prime, past Kay and current Kay, she does seem to have become a bit of a single-focused monster to some degree. Past Kay had her qualms and her little foibles, but the current one is just on a whole different level. So I think by time we see her batter this person that we would have assumed she might have liked some justice for, apparently not. And apparently, I want to point out, literally all of the people in the legal system, all of them, they're all total criminals or sociopaths or psychopaths. So Patricia Cornwell, I'm not sure what your ends are currently with federal policing, but it seems like you have a very poor opinion of crime fighting in our country and crime fighters, at least in this story. So she's taken his head off. Half of his head has been beaten off. And if there's anything I can see in the world, I will say, I can always relate. I think almost everybody at some point can relate to a deep-seated rage that we don't enjoy flying to the surface, and sometimes it comes out despite our best efforts, right? You look at different circumstances in the world and you might think, this is so unfair. This is so unjust. I could live in a state of constant rage for the things that could make my blood boil, but I'm not a happy person by doing that. She seems to live on the edge of that. But again, it's a bit one note in this adaptation, so it's a lot. While I could relate, not necessarily to taking someone's head off, I also feel like it's so gratuitous. So we got that done though, at least, right? Done, done, done. Here's the problem. Now, I have resolved the issue, but now I have still so many big problems. And again, the problems come from the writing. So love that scene, love it. Didn't understand a bit of it and actually hated many parts of it, but love that she at least got a scene, let's say, that's really what I mean, between Kay and Benton by the truck trailer. So Benton comes out as someone who breaks the law, obviously, or maybe has some quiet jurisdiction for that. He's been interrogating the guy in the truck, and I love that they have the moment. Most of this was written so poorly that it's ludicrous, but again, it's Scooby-Doo land. So ultimately, he gets to say, this is what we've done. And she says, who are you? And even I thought, what? Right? You've been married to this guy for 30 years. Now, in full transparency, I don't remember from episode 1 and all of that unearned shouting, screaming, and fast moving between time periods. I don't remember what he did in the interim 30 years, but has he not been kind of the same person? So when he now comes out on her and says, there's dark things about me you should know. Has she not had some smell of that in her household for 30 years? Again, this seems to be the problem with, apparently I've discovered, 2 books getting melded together mistakenly, poorly conceivedly. And there's these big gaps where you're like, what, did these people just get married 3 months ago or a year ago and she had no idea? It doesn't really ring true in any way whatsoever. But the main problem with the scene is exactly what she did with Maggie in the last scene. She apparently is so one note that she is single-minded and she has to be right. It's so boring to watch. I don't even have another word except for boring to watch, because ultimately she asks questions and she doesn't wait for an answer. It's so tedious. Now, for people who live with people like that, maybe it's really satisfying to them because they're like, this is what life is like. But my God, this is not the style of the shows that I normally watch, and this is not the style of most of the British shows that we normally are talking about in here. So this show is so an anomaly, but she's got to be right. She asks questions. She's not waiting for any answers. And then again, she's got to she's got to make a wound and then poke into it and pour salt in, right? So she's like, tell me, do your worst, do this and that. It was the same is this the little game they play, right? Is this like the S&M, the quiet BDSM scenarios this couple plays? And all of a sudden she's like, do your worst, I can take it. No, tell me, Benton. And she's kissing him, just like at the car a couple episodes ago. And I'm like, oh God, now I have to watch some people's like weird sex games, and I am not here for that at all. But she doesn't get an answer. Again, but here's the deal, right? And if I have to boil this down, we will dive into this in the recap. But for God's sake, this is a style of writing that I know is definitely very cliffhangery. It is much more American than British for sure, across the board, I would say. And so in these dramas, for the most part, you can have a style of writing that allows something to be said or not said, or it can be said and acted through, and then we can put things aside and move on. This style is not that. This style is, I'm intentionally going to say things that anybody else in the pretty regular world might have a response to, but you as the audience are not going to get the response because I need to hook you into the next episode, scene, whatever, right? And that's much more an American thing from what I can recall and what I think about now. What do you think? I really do hope that you tell me, because it's so unsatisfying to me, because it's like, why aren't we asking the obvious question? So that's what happens there. That scene is berserk. Finally, he says, I want a divorce. Thank God. If I were you, buddy, I would have gotten the divorce years ago. The fact that he then goes to the partner and she lives in some sort of like trailer park, like she lives in the woods. She's an FBI agent who pursues serial killers, who lives alone in the woods in some sort of like trailer. I don't know what is going on here. I can't imagine who these people are. They seem not so complex. They seem messed up. It's ridiculous. So suffice to say, he wants a divorce, great. He goes to her. They're drinking. I guess no good can come of this. But more along the lines of not saying what needs to be said, let's talk about AI Janet. So we'll move backwards a little bit, because what a great scene in the kitchen, finally, after this big blowout that we will discuss, right? We now have Nicole Kidman in the front of the frame, Jamie Lee Curtis in the middle of the frame, and then Bobby Cannavale enters the back of the frame. It's really good. But preceding that, Jamie Lee Curtis is saying, did you know that? And Nicole Kidman is saying, I knew nothing. But the thing that needs to be said is the whole point of the 5 minutes before, which was, who turned AI Janet off? Why is no one asking the obvious questions? Now, in mysteries and crime shows, the things we are used to are essentially that when people are asked a question, if they're the bad guy, they lie. If people are asked a question and they don't want to answer, and they're not the bad guy, they still lie. A lot of people lie. That's the deal. That's what happens in mysteries. That's what happens when criminals don't want to be caught. They lie. Now, is it ugly? Of course, but at least it creates a scenario that's more familiar to the real world. When you have done something your partner, spouse, parent, kid, whatever, was not happy about, have you always come clean, or has a little white lie popped to the surface? Well, that seems to be the case with every mystery. It's not unfamiliar to us. But here, the problem is we go to that secondary way of introducing things, but not letting the question be asked and not letting someone essentially lie. So we have this scene where Jamie Lee Curtis says, did you know that? Instead of saying, did you shut AI Janet off? No one then says, who shut off AI Janet? So this is a double fail with the writing. It is a style, I'm going to give it credit for that, but I'm not here for any of it. It's ridiculous and it's ludicrous, and I think it's quite disdainful and contemptuous of the audience, who is thinking to themselves, why wouldn't you ask that? Give us some satisfaction, which the show has stopped doing after episode 2 at all, and really it never did fully. So let's talk about AI Janet. What a great scene for Ariana DeBose. I think this bizarre show is the finest I've seen her and the most easy and consistent. I think she has delivered from start to finish. So Ariana DeBose, if you're seeing this, double thumbs up to you. Your role and your experience here is a little less thankless than your counterpart AI Janet's experience in the show. But you have been here, fulfilled everything. You have been so present. I'm here for all of it. You get to work so much with Jamie Lee Curtis. Lucky you. But boy, when you come home and have to talk to AI Janet and she's not saying anything, and you discover that, oh my God, where is she? She's not here. And then you realize that she has died a second time. I felt all of it with you. I felt all of it with you. Every single bit of it. I was there for every moment. And when your mother walked in that door and you were freaking out and she was saying the only obvious thing that every Italian person says, which is, what happened? Because something obviously happened. Not, what's up, honey? What's wrong? What happened? Something happened. And you nail the rest of that scene. It was shocking. Now, so kudos to Ariana DeBose, 100% there for you. Lucy, adult, awesome. Now, Jamie Lee Curtis's Dot then proceeds to go through this scene where she's like, I didn't know Janet could do that. Do what? Shut herself off. But we're not saying that because that says she dies again. But we are acknowledging that now, not just for the wife, for far more people, she has died again. And this is really ugly. And honestly, this is the thing that does come up and really is quite satisfying in good mystery programs, where grief is not ludicrously entwined with something like AI. What a choice, right? It's a choice. I'm not here for it. But when grief is naturally experienced and then we get to watch it, it is quite cathartic. And that was what that experience was. What we were not expecting was the fact that there was some failsafe and there's more to the story. So I personally do believe Jamie Lee Curtis when she walks through all of that, but she's a storyteller and she's an author. So it seemed to me like she was telling truth when she said, don't look at me, I had nothing to do with this. But then when they go into the kitchen, because she's like, it must have been my sister. Who else would it be? It totally could have been Pete. Who knows? Either way, though, why does Jamie Lee Curtis not want to know? I understand that her as the mother wants to listen to what her daughter is saying, which is ultimately the biggest clincher there. Another truth bomb, like these loose-lipped lesbians dropping the truth bombs. I'm here for all of it, where she says, 2 white women raised me, and boy, you kept seeing yourselves in me. And Janet was the only one who saw me. And again, my heart broke watching this. It was the only decent written thing, and I think the whole episode really, where it just was so spot on from Ariana DeBose, but then we have everything else falling apart after that. But Jamie Lee Curtis hooks onto that. So if that's the reason I'm meant to believe that she never follows up to bother saying, was it you? Hey, Kay, did you unplug AI Janet? Ultimately, that's what I got to figure out. That's what I really want to know. But right now, I still can't tell what the problem is. But someone did apparently have to do that. And maybe they didn't. Maybe there was some other failsafe. Now, by time Nicole Kidman is done with her brutalizing another human being, we're going to talk about that in the recap. Oh my God, right? Ultimately, someone walks in the door. Now, I did think Lucy is the only person still on the property, except she isn't, right? We have now gotten Lucy. She's directly gone to Yamamat because who else would you go to, honestly, right? I mean, was that not the only good option for her? The only good option was for her to go to Yamamat because this guy's on a quest to bring the dead bodies back to life with synthetic organs. I'm not sure what anybody's expectation could be in this situation, but listen, he seems to coerce women. He seems to run a cult. He wouldn't be my best choice. But listen, when you got few options, at least Lucy's been dispatched away from the property. Now, again, to come back to the main point, sure, despite Kay being someone who parks in front of serial killers' houses, the actual killer in the modern times actually did not he could not be heard entering the property on a car. So he walked up. But would Kay not hear was she in such a trance, apparently, that she would not hear a vehicle and then someone again walking in the front door, right? Everyone is so cavalier when there's killers on the loose and the people pursuing them might be targets, right? So the front door is apparently again unlocked. Someone walks in and she's like, oh. And then she's like, no. So I really wished it had been Lucy had she still been on the property. I think that would have been brilliant. It's the only thing that would have made this satisfying. I have to expect it's probably Pete Marino. I have to expect probably that weird, overly directed scene where Jamie Lee Curtis is on one side of the bed and Bobby Cannavale is on the other side of the bed. And it's so staged and everyone is like still like a statue. And then finally someone goes, go. Right? Someone behind the camera goes, go. And they start to move and it looks like he's coming round to her. I think he didn't. I think he went right back to Kay because he's obsessed, right? He can't stay in a nice hotel for a night. He's gotta be with someone that they can't even do something about. Because what do we know? Dr. Kaminsky, whatever her name is, she's got something with a skin graft. And he is like, it's like catnip to a cat, right? So I think it's him. And she goes, oh. And she's like, and then she's like, no, because she's like, no, you're going to take credit or you're going to try to cover this up for me again, right? Like that, it's all so on the nose to me. That seems to me the only place this can go, right? I can't imagine Benton came home because he'd be totally drunk and I do think we'd hear him. Anyway, that's enough of the modern time. I'm glad it's over. I'm so glad it's over. The sad thing is with this cliffhanger, it seems like everything from the modern period will carry over into season 2. And I'm so not here for any of that. I may not even do a season 2. Check back here. We'll see. Or maybe I'll just make them super short just because we know to expect, honestly, the worst. Now, the one thing I will say before we go back in time is Maggie in her little trench coat, full on Rocky and Bullwinkle. And if you don't know Rocky and Bullwinkle, now is the time to YouTube that stuff because look at Rocky and Bullwinkle and you're going to see pure Cold War mustache twirling villainy, right? She's got her little trench coat on. She gets in the car. She does the same thing in the shower. Wow, you look amazing. You are keeping up well. She's like, this is a nice car. This lady's so crazy, but I'm here for her. So anyway, she's like, we're going to put her away. Now, here's the deal. The phone call before that happened was, I know what to do next. So I feel like there's absolutely no reason we should trust Maggie. Maggie could finally be doing the right thing. But as we have a season 2, my expectation is Maggie is doing the wrong thing and probably trying to entrap Dr. K. Scarpetta. So wherever that goes, again, I kind of don't care. They're all awful people and awful characters, but that's my expectation. Kay should expect the worst. Now, let's go back in time because all of this is rather ludicrous yet again. So Kay is at the crime scene and it's very upsetting. And Kay realizes that Marino keeps giving her the credit. And then she walks back in the office and bunches of people randomly, because someone shouted, go, behind the camera. All these people come out of the office. She looks stunned. They wouldn't know she was there. It's all so confusing, but it's all so staged. It's so stagey, right? None of it feels like it rings true at all. She can't receive it. She's quite upset. I do quite enjoy it. And again, kudos to you, past Kay or younger Kay, but not young Kay, for God's sake, right? But I love that scene where she goes home and Dot is there, younger Dot is there to be with her. And she's like, you did this. Give yourself the credit. Give yourself what your God-given brains brought you to do. And do it for your namesake, K. Scarpetta. Now, I don't know why an Italian man in the 90s might have gone by K. Nothing about K jumps to mind because I speak a little Italian. So I don't know why he was called K. I love that they named her K. Whatever, it really doesn't matter. But suffice to say, she owned that. The two sisters had a great scene, and I love how she broke down. It was a great scene for her. She has nailed it and been underserved the whole time. Now, when we move things around and we have her totally getting it in the changing room / bathroom, the women's bathroom, in the facility from Benton, apparently right before going to some press conference. Here's my problem. I understand that investigations happen when guns are discharged, and that seems like a very good thing to do in officialdom. Nevertheless, she may have been the one to catch the killer, but is the wider public who has been scandalized, brutalized, harassed by a serial killer for all this time, are they not saying quite obviously, we caught him and he's dead? Why is he dead? Who killed him? Let's also, right? We're just glad it's over. So sure, she may have identified the killer, but that's the guy who stopped the killer. He wouldn't get any press time, any screen time. And that feels like if so much of these things were done for officialdom to promote their own self-interest, right? Wouldn't they want to put in the front of the camera the guy who may still be undergoing an investigation? That seems reasonable. But would people not want to say, well, who's the guy who killed him? Who literally stopped him? Again, it rings so untrue because that community wants all of it to have been over. And we want to know who the guy is. So again, none of it makes really much sense at all. But suffice to say, we also get the little moment planted where apparently 11-year-old Lucy has nailed it, and Maggie's computer is the one hacking, but it's not Maggie, it's Reddy. Whatever. Okay, so Jamie Lee Curtis remains one of the only good things in this show. She nailed the scene with her daughter. I was here for all of it. She is nailing this bizarre family drama that this show is really about, right? Where she has to deal with her husband's not infidelity even, but his potential emotional infidelity. And she's made an ultimatum, and quite rightly so. She's like, an ultimatum is not force, it is a choice. Now, ultimatums are really, I'm gonna say, not an ideal thing in the real world, but if you want what you want and that's the only way you're gonna get it, okay. But she's dealt with all of this quite well. It's also reminded us just how savvy and clever she is. So she's getting what she wants. She wants this partner. She's getting to leave an insane situation. She should have done it 2 weeks ago. She's finally getting to get her daughter unhitched from the unhealthy thing. I do think she's savvy enough to have turned AI Janet off and possibly acted her way through that, because she is a storyteller when people use that word. But suffice to say, she's been the heart of this blasted show. And she's the strongest thing about it. When Bobby Cannavale in the car with Nicole Kidman, when they finally get home, where it seems true, it seems like the niece did provide bail for him, but Nicole Kidman may have taken credit for it. He seemed to not know Lucy's role in that. How ridiculous. But ultimately, we do have that moment where he says to Kay, and she realizes, oh, this is probably true. We could just drive down that road and never turn back. And she's like, you leave with me. You leave with me. You leave my sister in the high and dry. You leave Lucy, my niece, who's like a daughter to me. And I think she knows that she's not only on such unstable ground with Benton, or maybe Benton came after. I don't remember at this point, truly with this show. Who cares? But she even realizes, I can't trust any of these people. And that's really what it comes down to. So it's over. Hallelujah, rejoice. It's over. Sadly, we have a second season to answer for. So if you would like to find out more about what is in store for the second season, click on the recap above, where I will walk us through why it's happening, because otherwise, it seems like it should not have happened. This does not ring true for something that we want to see more of. But again, I think Nicole Kidman, this material did not suit her or elevate her in any way. Jamie Lee Curtis, as you producing it, you made yourself shine, and I'm all for that. We had some great standout performances in the form of special mentions to young Kay, Ariana DeBose for her excellent performance throughout, and especially in the last episode. And really AI Janet, who kept getting short shrift throughout this entire thing. But even though she was turned off at the end, her curtain call was cut short, right? Ultimately, I do want to give that. And again, really great acting in such a weird, mediocre story to the young actors. I think it's really important to acknowledge these young actors, especially because how exciting for them to be in a big prestigious show, I'm sure it was intended to be, with Jamie Lee Curtis, Nicole Kidman, all these other famous people, and she did a really nice job. But come catch the deep dive on the whole thing and tell me right now, how do you wish this episode ended differently? Do you wish it ended differently at all? Do you love everything? Are you here for everything that's happening and how this is playing out? And most importantly, please tell me who you think walked in that door. Because now we need to kind of put a wager. Maybe I'm going to put a poll up somewhere of like, it's P, it's Lucy, it's Benton, it's a new serial killer. Who knows? Let me know. I can't wait to dive into this further with you.